Right now, we want to transition as we are following the very latest of the Sean Diddy Combs trafficking trial. It takes us out to the Big Apple, giving you a beautiful skyline shot there in New York City. Sean Diddy Combs will return to court today as his trafficking trial resumes after the holiday weekend.
In the same courthouse, the third week of testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' trafficking trial picks up today. Again, federal prosecutors plan to call Combs' former assistant as well as representatives from the Los Angeles police and fire departments to the witness stand.
This after rapper Kid Cudi wrapped up his testimony last week. Fox 5 New York's Briella Tomasetti joining us live this morning outside of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse with the very latest details. Briella, good morning.
Good morning to you, Gina. And when court resumes at around 9:30 this morning, another one of Diddy's former personal assistants, Capricorn Clark, is set to testify.
Eyewitness News reporter Phil Tate is live for us in Lower Manhattan. He's been covering this case for weeks now as it continues today. What do we expect today, Phil?
Yeah, Pedro, Michelle, good morning. Well, Sean Combs' racketeering and trafficking trial is set to get underway in just a couple of hours, and this after a 4-day break, all due to the holiday weekend. Prosecutors are expected to call Sean Combs' former assistant, Capricorn Clark, to the stand.
She could be a really key witness for the prosecution. Backing up for a moment to last week, rapper Kid Cudi testified that Clark called him in December of 2011 to warn him that Diddy had forcibly entered his house after learning that he had been dating Cassie Ventura. When Cudi got there, he alleged Diddy was nowhere in sight. Instead, he said someone had opened the Christmas presents he bought for his family and locked his dog in the bathroom.
And she will now join the growing list of witnesses that have already given some testimony. Now, we can expect more explosive testimony from her as she'll come into the courthouse. But it was just last week. Take a look at the video on your screen. Last Thursday, rapper Kid Cudi testified about Combs' apparent jealousy when Cudi dated Cassie Ventura in 2011 while she was briefly broken up with Combs.
A few weeks later, Cudi says his convertible was set on fire while it was parked in his driveway. A police report from the time indicates that Cudi's convertible was indeed set on fire by an incendiary device. So this was back in early 2012, but Diddy was never linked to the incident.
Now, Cudi accused Combs of breaking into his house and firebombing his car. Prosecutors revealed at the start of the blockbuster trial that jurors would hear about Combs allegedly waking up an employee in the middle of the night and forcing her at gunpoint to take him and his bodyguard to the home of a man who Ventura had been dating.
What happens when a courtroom bombshell collides with meme culture? You get day 10 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, where the testimony was so wild, it practically wrote the next episode of a Netflix docuseries. Today's star witness, Capricorn Clark, Diddy's former brand director, and what she revealed shook both the jury and the internet. According to Clark, back in the early 2010s, Diddy allegedly made a chilling statement about rapper 50 Cent. Not about competition, not about business, but about how, if things escalated, he wouldn't settle it with words. Clark says he said he'd bring heat instead. That's not just dramatic, it's personal. And within hours, 50 Cent, who's known for turning drama into content gold, jumped into the conversation online with his signature sarcasm. "I don't feel safe, thanks for the content." And just like that, this trial turned meta. But that wasn't all. Clark also described an incident involving Kid Cudi, one that started with an early morning knock on her door and ended with an SUV ride, a confrontation plan.
Cudi told jurors he met with Diddy at a Los Angeles hotel to try and smooth things over, but Diddy denied any involvement. The jury also heard from a makeup artist on Thursday who corroborated some of Cassie's domestic violence allegations.
And a luxury car getting torched days later. The connection, Cassie Ventura. The motive, a jealous reaction, according to prosecutors. And yes, Lauren London's name came up too. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team is fighting back hard. They're trying to show photos of a smiling Cassie at music events to dispute claims of control. But prosecutors argue that happiness in public doesn't erase fear in private. Today wasn't just another day in court. It was a turning point, one where the testimony blurred lines between personal history, public spectacle, and potential consequences. And what happened next only made things even more unpredictable. Capricorn Clark's story doesn't start with viral memes or social media reactions. It begins with something far more unsettling, a quiet warning in the middle of Central Park. According to Clark, her first real interaction with Diddy as an employee happened at night, in the park, not long after she joined his team in 2004. And what was supposed to be a simple welcome walk turned into something far darker. Clark says Diddy looked her straight in the eyes and told her that because of her previous connections to Suge Knight, yes, that's Suge Knight, if anything went wrong, he might have to take her out. That's not corporate banter, that's a message. And according to Clark, she took it seriously. But it didn't stop there.
She said Diddy assaulted Cassie after the 2010 Grammy Awards, leaving the singer with a swollen eye and a busted lip. Later, the general manager of a hotel that Diddy frequented in Beverly Hills testified that Diddy stayed there under aliases such as Frank White and Frank Black, names Cassie says he often used when checking in for freak-offs.
Weeks later, a piece of diamond jewelry loaned to Diddy for a public event reportedly went missing. Clark says she never took it, but that didn't matter. She claims she was questioned for hours by a man she didn't know, then taken to a building in Manhattan where she was locked in a room and forced to take multiple lie detector tests over several days. According to her, the man giving the test told her straight up, if she didn't pass, she could end up in the East River. She says she wasn't allowed to leave, that there were no windows, that she was cut off from everyone, and that every day she was told to try again until they got the answers they wanted. Eventually, she was told she could go back to work, without an apology, without closure, and without explanation. She went back, she says, because she was scared not to. And it's this backdrop, these early shadowy experiences, that sets the tone for everything Clark would later describe in court. The SUV rides, the burner phones, the fear of speaking up. What might sound outrageous to others, to her, was just part of the job. But if you thought that was bad, it was only the warm-up for what happened the night Diddy decided to pay Kid Cudi a surprise visit. December 22nd, 2011. It's barely 6 a.m. Capricorn Clark hears banging on her apartment door in New York City. It's Sean Diddy Combs. Not calling, not texting, but physically outside her home. Furious, pacing, and holding something in his hand. According to Clark, it was a firearm, and his message wasn't vague. Clark told the court that Diddy burst in and demanded, "Get dressed, we're going to take care of this."
Now, the judge hopes that this trial will conclude by July 4th, but the prosecution says it needs at least 4 more weeks to present its case against Diddy. So factoring in those 4 weeks, about another month, and then the jury having to convene and come to a verdict.
Allegedly, it was Kid Cudi, Cassie Ventura's rumored connection at the time. Cassie, of course, was romantically linked to Diddy for years. But according to Clark, when Diddy found out about her spending time with Cudi, he didn't handle it quietly. So she got dressed. Clark says she was terrified but complied. The plan was to drive to Kid Cudi's place in the Hollywood Hills. Diddy sat next to her in the back of the black Escalade, gun on his lap, while one of his associates, Ruben, drove. On the way there, Clark made a desperate call to Cassie, warning her that Diddy was coming. She said she even changed Cassie's contact name in her phone to avoid suspicion. And here's where it gets even more surreal. She claimed Lauren London was on the phone too, hearing it all unfold in real time. By the time they reached Cody's place, he wasn't home, or at least that's what Clark thought. Moments later, she says she saw his Porsche pull up the hill. Diddy saw it too. He told the driver to turn around, and they sped off. But within days, that very Porsche would be destroyed in a mysterious firebombing that made headlines across entertainment blogs. Cudi himself, in earlier testimony, confirmed that Clark warned him that Diddy had come to confront him. He also stated that after the break-in at his home, things never felt the same. The event clearly rattled him. And who could blame him? Clark told the court that after the incident, Diddy told her to convince Cudi to stay quiet. According to her, Diddy said if Cudi went public, it could hurt all of us. This wasn't just a jealous outburst. Prosecutors say this was a moment that paints a bigger picture of fear, control, and intimidation behind closed doors. But then came the next revelation, the one that had the courtroom buzzing, because it involved someone Diddy's been feuding with for years. Just when you thought the testimony couldn't get any more shocking, Capricorn Clark dropped a name that pulled the internet straight into the courtroom: 50 Cent. According to Clark, at some point during her years working for Diddy,
this trial could obviously take a bit longer than that. Certainly complicated factors to add into the equation. Jeanne, that's the latest we have live here in Lower Manhattan. We'll send it back to you.
The subject of 50 Cent came up. And what Diddy allegedly said in response wasn't just rivalry talk. She testified that Diddy dismissed the idea of handling things with words or public statements. Instead, she quoted him saying, "I don't like all that back and forth. I like guns." Yes, that's what she said under oath. And the moment that quote hit the news cycle, it blew up online. Because who's more famously unbothered and meme-ready than 50 Cent? Within hours, he posted to Instagram. The caption? Classic 50 sarcasm. "I don't feel safe, thanks for the content." And just like that, the trial went viral. Not for legal arguments, but for how fast it blurred into pop culture commentary. But beneath the jokes, there's something serious playing out. Prosecutors are using Clark's statement to support a broader claim that Diddy's actions and words over the years reflect a pattern of intimidation. Whether the jury sees it that way is still up for debate. But one thing is clear, this wasn't a one-off feud. Diddy and 50 Cent's tension has simmered for over a decade, from business jabs to social media shade, and now it's become part of a federal trial. And here's where it gets even more meta, because 50 isn't just reacting. He's been producing a docuseries about the allegations surrounding Diddy, and now this real-time courtroom quote might just make the cut. Clark's testimony handed him a headline, and in true 50 fashion, he didn't just take the moment, he owned it. Legal analysts say this could complicate things. Could the jury be influenced by what happens outside court? Could viral content shape public perception of a federal case? That's a question the judge may have to wrestle with. But for now, what's certain is that this trial isn't just playing out in a courtroom. It's trending. And if that sounds messy, just wait. Because the defense isn't backing down, they're rolling out something totally different: a photo album. After a roller coaster of testimony from Capricorn Clark,
the jury saw photos of his damaged Porsche, including a blackened interior door and a charred, melted driver's seat. Well, arson is among the predicate acts in the racketeering conspiracy that Combs faces outside of sex trafficking.
Diddy's legal team came back with a completely different tactic: pictures, smiling ones. In today's session, defense attorneys argued that images of Cassie Ventura looking joyful and carefree, laughing at music events, walking red carpets, recording music, should be shown to the jury. Their reasoning? These photos, they claim, prove Cassie wasn't in fear or under control. They're suggesting her public happiness contradicts the narrative that she was in a toxic relationship. But prosecutors were quick to push back. They argued that smiling for the camera or performing for fans doesn't equal consent behind the scenes. People can smile in public and still feel trapped in private. And if there's one thing this trial has made clear, it's that what was happening behind closed doors isn't always what we saw in the spotlight. While the courtroom was still digesting that back and forth, another key issue heated up: the DNA debate. Remember the firebombing of Kid Cudi's Porsche? That incident is still under heavy scrutiny. And now we've got forensic evidence on the table. Investigators recovered a glass bottle used in the Molotov cocktail, and recent reports revealed a partial female DNA profile was found on the bottle. Defense lawyers tried to suggest that this could introduce reasonable doubt. Maybe Diddy wasn't behind it, but prosecutors pushed back again, saying the DNA result is incomplete and that it could mislead the jury. The judge allowed the report to be mentioned.
Now, Combs has pleaded not guilty to these charges and, if convicted, could spend the rest of his life.
But warned both sides not to overstate its importance unless more credible interpretation is brought forward. So, what does this mean? It shows that both sides are playing hard. One is bringing emotion, memory, and stories of fear. The other is fighting back with optics, snapshots, and lab reports. And in between all that, the jury is trying to piece together a bigger picture. Who's telling the truth, and who's just telling a story? With the prosecution possibly resting sooner than expected, time is ticking for both sides to lock in their narratives. And while the jury saw smiling photos today, what they heard next completely shifted the tone. If the earlier testimonies painted a disturbing pattern, what came next from Capricorn Clark felt like the breaking point for the courtroom, for the jury, and for anyone watching the trial unfold. Clark described a moment she said she would never forget. According to her, after the alleged confrontation involving Kid Cudi, she witnessed Diddy in a deeply unsettling scene with Cassie Ventura. She told the court that she stood just 5 feet away as Cassie curled up on the pavement in a silent breakdown, and that Diddy was the one causing it. Clark claimed that Cassie didn't scream, didn't fight back. She was quiet, almost frozen. And when Clark tried to intervene, she says Diddy looked her in the eyes and warned, "If you step in, you'll get it too." That moment was hard to hear, and even harder for the courtroom to process. Some people in the gallery reportedly shifted in their seats. Even the prosecution seemed emotionally caught off guard. And yet, Clark wasn't finished. She went on to explain how she felt completely powerless afterward, that instead of calling the authorities, she called Cassie's mother and urged her to step in. Clark admitted on the stand that, in her words, the mission of the day was to keep things quiet. But the fallout didn't end there.
Definitely great points you bring up this morning, Briella, and it further adds to the viewers wanting to know if they might in fact get some surprise witnesses. We'll definitely be keeping a close eye.
Soon after that event, Clark says she was suddenly terminated from her role. She lost her company benefits, health coverage, retirement, even her company vehicle. And what's worse, she claims Diddy told her directly that she'd never work in the industry again. To make matters worse, she said every job lead she had either fell through mysteriously or went cold without explanation. She felt shut out, silenced, and erased. In her words, he held all the power. She later returned to work for Diddy out of desperation, something the defense brought up repeatedly to challenge her credibility. But Clark said it wasn't loyalty that brought her back. It was survival. This wasn't just a job to her. It was her livelihood, her reputation, her ability to provide for her family, including her son, who has special needs. And that's what made her testimony hit harder than anything else that day. Because it wasn't just about one scary incident. It was about years of silence, pressure, and living in the shadow of someone who, she says, could erase you with a phone call. But what happened next would flip the courtroom energy yet again. So, where does all of this leave us? Capricorn Clark's testimony on day 10 didn't just stir the courtroom. It spilled over into headlines, memes, and public perception. Between the disturbing claims, the celebrity name drops, and the emotional unraveling on the stand, one thing is clear: this trial isn't just legal, it's cultural. From the SUV ride to Kid Cudi's house, to the now viral gun over words quote about 50 Cent, to the emotional fallout Clark says she endured, her story paints a picture that's dark, complicated, and filled with tension behind the fame. And as if to prove just how tangled this trial has become, 50 Cent's Instagram reaction turned real court drama into internet entertainment within minutes, with a smirk and a caption. Thanks for the content. He reminded everyone watching that when celebrity, conflict, and courtroom collide, the internet doesn't wait for a verdict. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team is playing defense with everything they've got, from cheerful images of Cassie to scientific loopholes in the Molotov bottle evidence. But the prosecution has momentum, and they might rest their case ahead of schedule, signaling they believe the testimony speaks for itself. The jury still has a lot to process. But today wasn't just another testimony, it felt like a climax, the kind that leaves a courtroom speechless, and a timeline flooded. So, now we wait. Will more witnesses come forward? Will 50 Cent stay a spectator, or step into the legal ring himself? And what happens when public narrative starts influencing what happens behind those courtroom doors? This case is far from over. But if today proved anything, it's that the quietest voices often carry the heaviest truths. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want every twist, every revelation, and every unexpected headline from this trial. Drop your thoughts below, especially this. Do you think 50 Cent will get called to testify? Or will his memes speak louder than the courtroom?